Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here on North Carolina. If you missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to at least watch the first episode so that you have a proper introduction to our conversations. Please be aware that we expect you to behave with honor in our comment section. We are people at peace and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or promotional channel. We are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you, and we are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have marshals at arms that we have designated as moderators who are assisting in the comment section. If you have questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am joined on the air with Ohio Chairwoman Lisa Schaefer, and now I am proud to introduce you to Justice Anna Maria, who is joining us live from Alaska today. Yay! Hey, Anna, how are you doing? Hey, Lisa, how's it going?
Good.
Well, this is a big week because Anna's big day is coming. It's going to be Anna Day in 2 days.
Actually, it's going to be D-Day. And it's just sort of oddly appropriate that I was born on D-Day.
Well, what do you and Jim have planned?
Well, we have our traditional strawberry shortcake in lieu of birthday cake planned.
Nice.
I was born at that time of year when strawberries first appear in Wisconsin, and so that has been my birthday cake as long as I can remember.
Nice.
And we intend to sit down and have a piece together.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Well, we have like a whole bunch of great questions that are lined up. And but before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a couple things I learned this week. So first, I wanted to thank you and Lisa for helping me disentangle 100%. I'm super excited that I was able to file my dissolution for my corporation. And so I'm 100% unincorporated now. So that was a win. And then the other big deal is we went to go get our passports ready. I've been waiting for my daughter to turn 16 so that it would be an adult passport instead of the child's passport. So we were all going to get everything at the same time. And so we went there, and the woman at the post office was so lovely, so helping. And, you know, she taught me a lot of things. I tried to use my ASN credential card that I get from the LRO. And I've always been wondering why it wouldn't work. And, you know, I've tried to use it at the airport and different places. And she said some very important things. She said, I'd love to use your credential card. She said, however, it does not have an issue date on it. It doesn't have an expiration date on it. And there isn't any autograph that I can compare. And I need to be able to compare the autograph that's on the credential card with, you know, when we sign the form. And she even, Anna, watched us adjust the form, do our bylines, do all the things to the form. She said nothing. Oh, and she even asked, you know, like when I was filling the form out where we put the zeros for our zip code on the second page, she said, you know, this is concerning because this isn't an official, like this isn't a proper mailing address. We want to make sure you get your passports. And I said, oh, it's on there. It's done properly. And then she looked at the beginning where it says in care of on the first page, you know, where it had it done correctly there. And she said, oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. She said, that's great. And then she was just very like, supporting of whatever it was that we were giving her. And I just thought that that was fascinating. And I thought that if we can do something to improve and make correction to the LRO so that the people that get the credential cards now, we know the 3 missing things, and that can make it better for everybody.
Well, some states do have expiration and dates, and some states have signatures.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of adjusting your LRO, or everybody getting together and making an adjustment to the LRO in general, so that everybody has those elements available.
Right.
Be sure that if you are doing a signature of that sort, that you guard your credential card very closely, and that you put you actually write a little private copyright signal symbol near your with your signature, so that it's not something that can be latched upon for commercial purposes.
Got it. Make sure we copyright it. Anything else that we should know?
No, no,
Okay.
we've had lots of success with the passport office, um, using the cards and using the IDs that we have. Um, so I'm hoping this is just something peculiar to North Carolina and not peculiar to everybody. But anyway, yeah, there's no reason why we can't, across the board, provide an issue date and an expiration date,
Sure.
and
These
provide
are
space
these
for
are from the main LRO. We use the main LRO. North Carolina doesn't have our own right now. We're working on it. So
I see.
so
Okay, well, let's get back to Terry, and I'm sure we can provide for that.
sure, yeah. I just thought it was great to get an answer. I thought it was
Yeah,
just
well,
nice.
the thing is that uh, they're supposed to be helping us. They're supposed to be serving us, and instead we've been treated like enemy war combatants,
Yeah,
which is horribly, horribly inappropriate. And any pretense of war is inappropriate, has been inappropriate since 1860s. So this has to end, and the presumptions that these corporations have been making against their employers have to end. And we're the ones that can make that happen.
that's right. Well, we we can just jump on into the questions. Ready, Anna? Lisa? Anybody you have anything else different to say before we start, Lisa?
No, I just want to wish Anna a happy birthday on Thursday. I listened last night, and I hope you get your favorite cup of coffee and your nice time on your porch and enjoy your morning before you dig in. So,
Yeah, well, that's my plan. If it doesn't rain, I'm going to be sitting out on my back deck with a cup of coffee watching the sunrise.
there you
Nice.
go.
That sounds
There you go.
wonderful. Okay. So, Headhunter Brian says Anna mentioned last night that some states were succeeding in getting states of state to recognize private tags. Which states are those? Oklahoma would like to learn from their process.
Well, basically, it just is a matter of getting hold of some of the state legislators and informing them that they're not in compliance with federal law. Hello. This is part of the Federal Highway Safety Acts, and it's a provision for private plates to be issued because we are not driving motor vehicles. Okay. When we take our car out on the road and we are not engaged in commerce, right? We're not corporations, we're not representing corporations, and we're not involved in commerce as a result. And we know from reading the definition of motor vehicle that our car is not a motor vehicle, and yet we are being suborned and harassed and forced to lie, to falsify public records, not only about what we're doing on the roads, but what our cars are being used for on the roads. And that's not something that the state can do. And so we've gotten hold of state legislators and brought their attention to the fact that the state is in fact required to provide private plates, and their failure to do so is resulting in people being forced to basically bear false witness against themselves, and is resulting in crime,
Hmm.
because it's a crime for them to force anyone to falsify a public record.
Here's some associated questions. So Michael is saying, Anna, thanks for what you do. The question is, your state issues Z plates. Could you please place your state code somewhere so that we might cite it? I guess they're just saying the same thing again. I actually know that you have an article about this, and I could share that. I'll share it
Right.
on the United States of America Telegram channel, friends, so that you'll have this information.
Well,
Um,
and what's especially effective for a lot of state legislators and bureaucrats is when you come in and you show them an actual picture of a Z plate in action, and they get the idea. Oh, well, we could just issue these Z tags with a different coded serial number, and it really wouldn't be that expensive to do. You see,
yeah.
they don't want the expense of issuing completely different license plates, which is what they used to do.
Hmm.
Um, and but with the tags, it's just a matter of coming up with a different kind of tag. And I can provide you with pictures of the tags and how that works.
You know, we looked up on North Carolina. There's actually a chart from the Department of Motor Vehicles that shows the variety of tags and what they mean. Like, you know, what, and I actually have what they consider a private tag for an automobile, and according to their own definition, but they don't treat it like that. And it doesn't say private. You know, then we also on North Carolina have a separate thing that's literally says private vehicle. And then when you look that up, then nothing comes up. Like the cops are like, no one can get any information. It's just private. So I thought that was an
Does it,
interesting piece of information. And maybe every other state, if you guys check it out, you might have something like that. This was all publicly, like I was able to find it in a search. Yes, Lisa.
does it say private vehicle?
I'll send you what I have, the PDF of what I have. I'll post it on our Telegram channel for everyone to see it. It's fascinating. It's like a whole list, and it has like handicap, this, that, ding, ding. And it has all the different kinds of tags, including like the ones that are, you know, like supporting wildlife or cancer, you know, breast cancer treatment or whatever. Like all of those, there's like a bunch of them listed there, and it's identified there as a private automobile. I thought that was
Okay.
fascinating. And then I looked at my tag, and my tag has that. It's like 3 letters and 4 numbers. It's a combination code, you know, that they have, like whatever the code is. But then they also have a private, you know, vehicle that
Okay. So the word vehicle is a commercial word. It
it
Right.
is.
means
It
it
is. But so they have a
so
private vehicle, but then they have a private automobile, like two different
right,
things. Yeah.
right.
And the
Right.
So, we
yeah.
would really prefer to go by the language that's out there, or I always refer to them as conveyances, because the
So
Supreme Court.
automobile, what's the word? What's the word?
Automobile is the correct word for a private car.
Automobile, everybody. We're looking for automobile.
You could also say private truck. But
Private
you
truck.
know, the issue here is that they're not even obeying their own law. They're not. These are
Exactly.
franchises like Dairy Queen franchises, and the parent corporation has required them to provide private plates, and they're not doing so. And this is resulting in people having to lie about their activities and lie about the use of their car. And that's not right. So, basically, this has to be sorted out nationwide. And if one of the state of states is in compliance and others are not, it's just like a Dairy Queen franchise. Is everybody going to offer the Blizzard or not? And if not, then there's not equal treatment. All right, there's not equality under the law. So they have to, and just getting enough state legislators aware of the fact and getting that corrected, which could be just an administrative correction, would save all of the conflict and all of the foo-foo-rah and all the resistance to the entire process, because we're not we don't care if we have to identify the ownership of our car. It's our car. We'll take responsibility for it. Yes, that's mine. That's not an issue. The issue is we're not using it in commerce, and we're not subjugating ourselves to the law of commerce as a result. And we're not willingly falsifying public documents that are held by the state for use by the public. So they cannot suborn us to falsify a public document.
Right.
Jay
And it
wants
is
to
one of
know.
the, sorry, it
Um,
is one of the most common reasons that people get pulled into court, into their courts where we don't have any business being. So if we can get that settled for our state nationals, that would cut out a great deal of the exposure that they have to the administrative municipal courts. So,
Right.
So,
And
on that note, for the courts, One for Freedom says, please settle once and for all. Do ASNs present fee schedules to de facto officials or not when arrested and taken to court?
well, you can certainly do so if you want to, but then you are operating in a commercial manner. At the same time, you're telling them you're not commercial entities.
There's a lot there. Yeah, there's a lot to comprehend for that. Okay, Jay wants to know, I have $1,000 in silver certificates. How do I get them into my GF bank account? And what is the value once in my account?
I would just hold on to those silver certificates for now because they're good for actual silver. Okay. And for various reasons, silver is going to be very valuable, um, especially in any settlement of the U.S. debt. So I would just hold on to those and not put them in any kind of bank account for now.
Mike wants to know if notices in mail are a major drain on resources that could be diverted to donations. Any progress on Mochi account? Do you understand this question?
Well, I know what a MOSI account is, or what it potentially means, but I don't know why it would be at the United States Post Office.
I think that he's talking about. I don't get it either, really, Mike. I mean, I thought maybe Anna knows what this means because I don't know. But
Well, we do spend a lot of money sending notices and mail costs and whatnot, but the mutual offset credit exchange exemption is actually part of Federal Code Title 4, and Title 12. And basically what it is it's a debt swap program so that we owe them money for services provided. They owe us money for all sorts of different reasons. And so what the law provides is that we can request a debt swap instead of extending new credit to them. Okay, so it's a mutual offset credit exchange exemption where our credit is being applied against their billing of our accounts, right? And this has been another one of those things where some states and some situations people get instant relief, and in other states, for other reasons that we don't know, people don't get relief. So sort of like the private license plate issue, this is something that has not been standardized, even though it's federal law. And once again, it's something that needs to be taken to the state legislatures, and it needs to be taken to the district personnel, and they need to have this shoved up their noses so that they have to account for the fact that they're not giving the exemptions which are necessary. Now, 9/10 of the reason they're not going to give an exemption is that they mistakenly think that this means that they're not getting paid. If they don't get new credit, they think they're not getting paid. But it's actually, because this is all a credit system, It's actually a matter of paying down your credit cards. It has the same effect as paying down your credit cards. Say that I'm being billed for $100,000 in government services, which I swear to God I never received. Okay, but anyway, say that I'm being billed for $100,000 worth of government services. Um, and I don't want to pay that out of my pocket, out of my receipts, right? So I say, well, I don't want to extend you any more credit, new credit, but I'll take a debt swap and swap you that $100,000 in government services against $100,000 that you owe me. Okay, and so we do a debt swap, my debt to them, their debt to me, and we wipe that down. So what happens is that they get $100,000 headroom that they can respend as credit. It's just like paying down a credit card debt. Okay, but they're too stupid to realize that. And that's been the problem with the the program from day one, is that they didn't get it. And actually, what they're always struggling against is the quote unquote debt ceiling. And the debt ceiling is such an issue because they never pay down the existing debt using the program. Anyway, so we've been trying to educate the state legislators and the federal legislators about the mutual offset credit exemption and its effect on them and on their budgets. But you know, if if you can't explain to someone that paying down their credit card debt allows them to respend that amount of credit, I don't know what more you can say to them. It's just an educational effort which has been very, very difficult over time. Lisa, what are you up to?
So what I wondered in that question was maybe he has mochi mixed up with a tax per queue, and the tax per queue process for mailing in international areas. However, I can tell you we have had tremendous trouble with tax queue here on Ohio, to where they even were threatening us to send in postal inspectors if we kept using tax per queue. Um, and so maybe that was what he had that confused with, rather than mochi is the tax per queue issues that are there.
Well, and that's another issue. You know, our postal service is not their postal service, and they have an agreement with us that our postal rates are set at a very low cost compared to theirs because we've had to bear the expense of their systems for them.
Right.
And so we are not taxed at the same rate that they are. Now, the issue is, are we US citizens or citizens of the United States, or are we plain old Americans, civilians who are owed the tax pursue rate? And we are. But, again, our employees have been dumbed down to a point where they don't understand how this works either, or why. And we have the job of having to educate them at the same time that they're sparring at each other and fighting with each other, um, and acting like idiots.
Yeah, we've had Cleveland, Ohio postmaster actually writing on the mail and or refusing to deliver or return any of the mail, and you get a nasty letter from him.
Well, send me a copy
And
of the nasty
withholding it.
letter, and we'll have James send him a nasty letter back.
Okay,
That
we'll do
would
it.
be so fun.
I believe we still have that in our archive. We've really struggled with it, because that for the assemblies would be really a very easy way to deliver some of our mail in many ways. It would save us a great deal.
Yeah.
Well, and they don't really need to be we should be in a situation where they are not struggling over these issues. The United States State Department is supposed to send out messages to all of the various agencies and departments, releasing them from any idea that we are part of them. Okay? And this was being done on a regular basis for a number of years. And then all of a sudden, the U.S. Department of State decided that they weren't going to continue doing the notices to their own departments and agencies. There were too many of us coming out of the woodwork, and that it was too much of a burden on them to have to send an email to all of their agencies and departments. We, on the other hand, consider it their duty as a usufruct because they acted as a public usufruct and basically began using our names, our private names, for public purposes. And the British Crown went so far as to copyright our names for that use. And as a result, they owe us the duty to hold us harmless from any result of creating these public entities, these public personas, okay? And they owe us the usufructuary duty to hold us harmless. And if they don't, then they're in breach of trust and they are in breach of contract, at which point we don't have to pay any attention to them at all. Now, I think it's important for them to understand their responsibility when they are claiming a public usufruct use of our private names and property. So we will just continue to educate.
You ready? Okay, this is a combination of questions, Anna. So Johnny is saying, how do I go about investing in companies for a percentage ownership with a sovereign status? How should I address the contractual documents? And what he's talking about is like, how do you use the licensed professionals for real estate and business analysis, like appraisals? And finally, status information for ownership of real estate and businesses, also for limited time employment of licensed professionals that will help with contracts and the two assets management and analysis. I think that, like, how are we going to manage real estate without their licensing and all of that stuff? How does this work for us on the, like, based on the law of the land, maybe?
Well, it's not certain how this is all going to play out. The British came in here and they took title to our land, and they had no right or reason to do so. When they did that, then the land was all rolled up into a state trust, and the state trust then became the landowner, okay? And the Queen became the beneficiary of the state trust, because this was presumed to be land that was all owned by British territorial capital U dot capital S dot capital C citizens. And as a result of this phony land title system, real estate was born. We had no real estate in this country prior to the 1930s. And the real estate is royal estate. The word real doesn't mean actual physical, it means royal estate. Okay? And that's how the late Queen became the largest landowner on Earth, is that her minions were going out and misapplying the British title system to properties that didn't belong to their citizenry. And as a result of their fraud, we now have a real estate system, and we have had a chain of titles. Just think about the language here. You have a chain of titles. Where else do you see titles? Sir Sagramore, Lord blah blah, Earl of blue. This is a foreign British title system that has been misapplied to property assets belonging to Americans based on the earlier fraud of unlawfully converting those Americans and their birthright political status into that of British territorial citizens, the quote unquote dead baby scam. So they're basing all these claims and all these assertions of property rights and interests for themselves and for their queen based on fraud committed against babies, resulting in unconscionable contracts that are then enforced on the adults. And so the key problem here is that they have committed fraud against their employers, and they are now paying the price for it, and they don't want to, and they don't want to dissolve their state trusts. But these state trusts need to be dissolved because they're built on fraud. And it's very obvious, very self interested fraud. It has been accomplished under false pretenses from day one. And the fundamental false pretense is that the Civil War was a war. It doesn't qualify as a war. It was not declared as a war by any Congress of this country. And as a result, it was a mercenary conflict and it was illegal from the get go. It's still illegal now for them to be participating in any kind of mercenary conflict on our shores. And so the fundamental issues are: number one, there is no war. Number two, we're not U.S. citizens. And number three, our land is our land, it isn't yours. And we're not holding it under any title. And we want this entire system dissolved. Anyone who is actually a British territorial citizen by choice, they can leave their property in these state trusts. The rest of us want our property out of the state trusts, and we want the British hands out of our pockets.
So it seems like he shouldn't be wanting to invest in these companies. That's the question here. How do I go about investing in companies for a percentage ownership with a sovereign status?
Well, what's the benefit of having a sovereign status if you're going to be subjected to all of the rest of this rot as a partial owner in a corporation that is foreign?
Which goes to the next question, which is how to use the license. I mean, like, we can use licensed professionals because that's not us, right?
Right. Well, we can contract with them to provide services. It doesn't really affect anything. But the problem is that all of these systems that you're referring to are bankrupt. All those corporations that you are referring to are already bankrupt. And at a certain point, all of this is going to come apart. So here you are chasing around, trying to participate in a system that is already invalidated. And, if you invest money, time, or anything else in these foreign corporations, what's going to happen? Well, the best answer is that they would all lawfully convert, just like they all unlawfully converted. They could lawfully convert, in which case life could go on fairly undisturbed. Okay, things would simply sort out, and everybody would have what they needed, and it would be okay. That's if they lawfully convert. If they don't lawfully convert, then they get liquidated, at which point it's a total loss to the owners. And so, because the creditors, the primary creditors, owed $147 trillion by these corporations at this point, will take over and they'll liquidate the assets, or they'll take it in forfeiture and establish new management. And you as a shareholder or as a shareholder, you're in a position of being responsible for the debts of these corporations. And if you are a co-owner in a incorporated business, then you're in an even worse position of liability. So there is no way in hell that I would recommend anybody getting getting involved in any incorporated business in any capacity whatsoever at this point. The whole point is that you're shedding any shareholder responsibility.
Hmm. I think, Anna, it's interesting. When I'm talking to people with the boots on the ground, then, you know, let's just put this another way, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but like, when I was going through my process of trying to be unentangled or disentangled, then, I had to think to myself, like, how do I want to be able to help? Because of what I was doing was the truth, it was the right thing. How do I do this without being entangled with them? And so, like, a lot of folks who are currently in real estate, they could be so valuable in helping people, instead of doing whatever they're doing in this current way, just rethink about it and think, like, what part of this is lawful on the land? Like you were saying, how do we claim our grant? How do we take everything back? All maybe these folks can use their knowledge, because they already know how to trace titles, most of them, and follow it back, and then help people take back their parcels, and do these
All
things and
right.
provide those services, because these are the things that they just want to have an honest living. And there's other people who just don't know very much about it, and these guys do. So I don't know, like.
There's nothing stopping a real estate agent from, researching chain of title and assisting people in reclaiming their land patents.
Right. That would be a great use of your knowledge. And instead of investing in a company that does this, whatever he's talking about, he could invest. These are enterprising ideas that we need, our folks, they just need ideas of, like, how do we shift? How do we take our knowledge from this, and
Yeah,
shift into the other direction? So
right.
anyway, at least that's what I got out of this. And I appreciate you, Anna. Um,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe you could explain a little bit about how to disentangle a nonprofit corporation
Mm.
into a completely private organization, yet how to be in it but not of it, and
Ah.
what you discovered.
I'll tell you what I did. I started 16 years ago when I realized that this was lies. And when I set it up, I didn't like the people who were guiding me. We were trying to figure out how to stay out of the trenches with those folks, because everything that we were doing was illegal, we thought. Like, Joel Salatin is one of my mentors, and he wrote a book, Everything I Do is Illegal. And all he was trying to do is provide raw milk to his community. And so everything that we were doing, I was really from the beginning making an effort to, and I was feeling, on one hand, you feel like, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad girl. Like, I'm not trying to break all the rules. I'm a good rule follower. And on the other hand, you're just like, excuse me, I'm not a slave. Okay. And so it's a very fine line. And I was really careful, Anna, not to allow myself ever to bend the knee. And I was very clear that I could identify, this is the corporatocracy, and this is reality. I started with a sign, and I still have that sign, and it says nothing but the truth. And if it doesn't pass my truth gauge, then I can't participate in it, whatever it is. So, you know, I think that if you're operating whatever ABC business is that you're doing, and so because of that, Anna, I was able to make sure we were not in debt. We didn't have any extension. I mean, like, I didn't owe any money or anything, so that when I dissolved my nonprofit, I could fill that form out that basically said that we have no assets to disperse. We have nothing, because we didn't take anything. We definitely didn't take anything from any corporation. Never took a penny from the Fed. Never took a penny of grant money. Never took any donation except for private money from people like yourself. Like, we just only took private money. It was a volunteer situation, like someone voluntarily gifted us money because they loved the work that we were doing to help mothers save their babies with real food, basically, because that's what I started with. I was coaching them how to use food to help their vaccine injured children reverse the vaccine injury, and we were successful with that. And now I've worked with tens of thousands of families. And so over time, any money that we ever got extra that was what it was. It wasn't very much. It wasn't very often. Most people here are members, and they're members because they know that we have no money to pay for the infrastructure. And so the membership fee literally just pays rent and insurance and whatever is required for us to have a space, like a commercial space. Otherwise, but we never had any other withholding. So as soon as I figured out how to fix my one bank problem, I was able to fill the form out and dissolve. And so anyone who is currently operating in a nonprofit situation, I mean, you got to find out, like, did you take money from anybody? I never did, because I never wanted to be beholden. You take a penny from somebody, you owe them something. So that was the big deal. I think that was why I was able to so easily. I had just one form to fill out and record, instead of all the madness. So you were gonna.
Sometimes I coach a little bit more than that when we're advising people on Ohio how to disentangle their business, because there are considerations that you have to make. For example, you have to look at, who do you do business with? If you're doing business and doing any kind of business with the state or any of the municipalities, you do have to take that into consideration, because then you're going to have contracts with them, and they're going to require you to be a registered business on the state. If you do that, most of the rest of it is a right of common wage, and so having an LLC only really gives you a couple of protections. It protects the name that you choose, and it gives you a veil of liability that separates you from your personal, your private assets. And that's really the two benefits of being an LLC. Whether that's a 501(c), which is basically an LLC, or any other LLC, S Corp or C Corp. And so with that, you have to make that consideration. Do I need then to maybe carry private liability insurance? Because if I suddenly expose all of my private assets, then maybe I need to do a little bit of liability, an indemnity or something on that side that's going to protect your private assets. And then the third thing that has to be considered when you do that is, how you, again, what assets do you have, so that when you separate out from the state, you're not, got giant assets, and whether or not you've, paying any taxes. If you're a taxable LLC, that you come up with whatever taxes that have to be made, because taxes for them, when you're an LLC, is basically their cut of the business. That's the profit out of your business.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason to have an incorporated entity of any kind is if you do have contracts with them.
Which I didn't. And so, yeah, but I like what Lisa's saying, because I know a lot of folks, like my neighbor, he does glass work, and he is maintaining government buildings, and he's managing the glass. So,
right. But the smart thing to do then is to have two businesses. Go ahead and an LLC that holds the contracts with the federales and with the state of state and with the incorporated corporations, and have your own private business, which is indemnified and which does not have all of those restrictions and constraints, to do international trade. And as people realize the advantages of international trade, they're going to become more and more familiar with it. They're going to become more comfortable with it, and they're simply going to do it because it has so many advantages over commerce.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize you don't need that state of state EIN or TIN unless you're doing business with them. You can go to the treasury.gov, and you can get a banking purposes only EIN. That will allow you then to have a bank account, to be able to transact within that. Some, some businesses, even private businesses, because they don't understand our issues or our jurisdiction, they want that EIN number for their records, and you can give them tell them that it's a banking only, it's for banking purposes only. You have no other, and as long as they've got an EIN, they're usually good. So
Right.
it's,
But now as our businesses are being established in trade, and we have our own trade bank, our responsibilities or obligations change
that's right.
because we're not shareholders and we're not employees or officers of any foreign corporation. And so
Right.
we wind up limiting our liability simply by crossing the line into international trade. And when we're in international trade, guess what? We're indemnified. So, each and every American is indemnified to operate in international trade, and your business, you're responsible for your business and that you will not get bankruptcy protection from the public, but then you do not owe the public anything. Okay, here's the big thing. These companies that you see that are, C corps, S corps, whatnot, they owe the public because they are in receipt of bankruptcy protection. Their shareholders have public obligations as a result. But if you're not setting yourself up so that you are seeking the benefit of public bankruptcy protection, then you owe the public nothing. And you don't have to divulge your private business to the public. And there are great advantages to that. You also are not regulated by the public. And there are great advantages to that. So basically, because uh, we've been taking the advice of people that are operating in a foreign system, that is, attorneys, um, we've been making stupid mistakes, things that are a detriment to our own advantage. And
Nice.
so now that we're going back and picking up where we left off and actually spooling up our independent, unincorporated businesses, then we are able to deal in an entirely different playing field. And that's what our bilateral banks are designed to do. And one of the confusions about the bilateral banks is that, yes, we can function in commerce, but it's land jurisdiction commerce. It's not maritime commerce. And as a result, our commercial banks are under merchant law. They are not under law merchant.
Oh. Can
Our
you
bank,
can you speak more about that and explain that just a little bit more clearly, Anna?
well, you've got two international jurisdictions. You've got land and you've got sea. And land, you can conduct commerce on the land and you can conduct commerce on the sea. And they fall under two different forms of law. When you conduct commerce on the land, you're acting under merchant law. And you have merchant banks. Okay? When you are conducting commerce on the sea, you're working under a mirrored form of law called law merchant. And then you are again subject to a foreign government, a foreign form of law, and all of these banks are bankrupt. All these commercial banks that you see are bankrupt, and they've been bankrupt, operating in receivership since the 1930s.
How do we show that we're operating under merchant law? Is there something specific that would show that?
Yes, we're banks of commerce. Okay, when you're looking at this, um, they are um, they know what they're operating under. And so the banks that you see out here are banks of commerce. The things that you're familiar with, they're all banks of commerce. The banks that we are operating are the true commercial banks.
So commercial banks versus banks of commerce, that's the mirror. But so for us to, as a business owner, show that we are operating under merchant law, is there something we're supposed to do besides that? Like, I've got my account, for example, set up on Global Family Group for the business. Is there
Mhm.
something else? I'm just checking because this is what everybody's going to ask next.
No, that's by choosing the bank that you're choosing,
Mhm.
you're automatically in that realm.
This
If
is
you were
important to know. I mean, I wouldn't have known that. Thank you. Okay, by choosing the bank.
right, so I was using the example last night of how we assume that when a bank offers home loans that they're offering to loan us money so that we can then buy a home for ourselves.
Right.
And instead, what they're doing is they're making an offer that we give them our home so that they can borrow against it. Okay. Um, they're talking about us loaning our home to them
Right.
instead of them loaning us money so that we can buy a home for ourselves. And it's a lot to do with the bank. Now, the thing that's sweeping the world now is a move toward decentralized banking.
Mhm.
And this is the pushback of the retail banks that are taking it in the shorts for the misadministration and wrongdoing of the central banks, which of course are in the business of commodity rigging, which is illegal to begin with. Okay, and they were given a license by these private corporations masquerading as our government so that they could do this. So they've been legalizing all sorts of things that they can't legalize. One of two things I want to very briefly discuss. There are it's come to light that there is a domestic bioterrorism program that they're attempting to legalize and that they've been working on legalizing since 1969 that allows them to kill us legally. Um, and this is just one example of why we need lawful government and not legal government. This is why we need disinterested public government instead of self-interested incorporated government under contract. But anyway, that's about to hit the fan. Another area where this shows up is NESARA. There are those of us who know that NESARA started out as a result of the farm union cases, that it was brought all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court agreed with us. They said, oh, yes, you're correct. These are improper, illegal practices. And yes, the government corporations and the banks and everybody is wrong, and you are owed all of this. However, it's a moot point because your complaint is unenforceable. The entities that you are complaining against are bankrupt, and because they're bankrupt, you can't get any satisfaction. It's like blood out of a turnip. So that's what we were told by the U.S. Supreme Court concerning the farm union cases. Yes, you're right. We agree with you. Boom, there's your rubber stamp. However, you can't enforce against these entities because they're already bankrupt. And this is the game that these corporations, these foreign corporations in the business of providing governmental services have been doing all along. They've been claiming that we're part of their public and that we're responsible for the costs of their public bankruptcies. And so they just go bankrupt, and that gives them a out of jail free card, and then they go on skating under a different new incorporated name. And so that's what happened in the 1980s with NESARA. Then the rest of you have heard about how Bill Clinton signed NESARA into law. And indeed, it was signed into law in December of the year 2000. And 5 days later, the corporation declared bankruptcy, and so it was unenforceable again. And they just play this game and keep on playing this game of, well, yes, you're right. We did all these bad things. We did all these illegal things. We did all of these horrible, fraudulent things against you, and it resulted in terrible losses for you. And now we're going bankrupt, and we're going to charge you for all of our expenses in bankruptcy. And this is just a huge, horrible game that they've been playing with the American public and with the British public and with the French public and with the Dutch public and with the Danish public. Everybody has been the victim of this corporate game. And it's a process of legalization, which they're trying to apply to all these things: legalized murder, legalized biowarfare, legalized every kind of crime you can think of, they attempt to legalize by providing a remedy somewhere in the web of their legislation. But the truth of the matter is that no living man or woman is subject to legislation. Only persons are subject to legislation. Now think about this. You know, everyone's upset about the WHO Treaty. Well, who does the WHO Treaty actually apply to? And the answer is it applies to municipal citizens. The next question is are you a municipal citizen? And the only way that you could be construed as a municipal citizen is if you are first a British territorial citizen. And it turns out that no, you're not. So in neither case are you a citizen of any kind against your will. And they need to be brought up short and checked on all of this immediately. Because as you're going to see, you are owed NESARA. They are not able to boss you around based on their own little private corporation rules and policies. And no, you are not obligated by these false contracts that they have set up to benefit themselves when you were just babies in the cradle. Those are unconscionable, undisclosed contracts, and they are invalidated from day one. So, no, it's time for a big pushback of the public against these private corporations that have been acting as our government, simply because they were government subcontractors. And the actual employer of these government subcontractors are the state citizens of each state assembly. So it's the international business assemblies which have the ability to pull these horses in and say, no. They've been getting away with all this unilateral contracting for lack of anyone to say no. Well, we now have everything set up so that we can say no. And we've been saying no on a regular basis. I gave you the example yesterday of the 17th Amendment and all the other amendments which have never been ratified by our states. Those are just unilateral contracts that our employees made for themselves. And for lack of anyone saying no, they've gotten away with enforcing them by an assumption of acquiescence. Well, now that our states are standing up and are assembled and the federation is in play, we can say no. You know, we choose to ratify the amendment abolishing slavery, but no, we don't choose to ratify the 14th Amendment that then enslaves people and makes public slavery possible. No, we do not ratify the 16th Amendment, which allows the collection of Internal Revenue Service fees and claims in this country. No, we don't ratify the 17th Amendment, which changes the basis of the electorate of United States senators We can say no to all amendments since 1865.
Is that what
And
we're doing next, Anna?
well, I think we should take the teeth out of the 14th Amendment. We
Hmm.
should take the teeth out of the 16th Amendment. We should take the teeth out of the 17th Amendment. You'll see that if you start studying the amendments, that some of them are moot. It really doesn't matter anymore because they were just mistakes in the first place and they got repealed.
Hmm.
Um, but going through these amendments, we can dictate what goes on here in this country versus what they do to their own employees.
Hmm. Sounds like with all the cleaning that we're doing, because it's messy. You talked about that last night. We pulled everything out of the garage. Okay, Anna, what are we putting back in? Now we're sorting the
Exactly.
piles. Okay, this pile can go. This pile can go.
Right, right. Um, it's important for us to understand that we don't have control of what these foreign corporations impose on their own people.
Hmm.
What we have control of is what we allow in our country.
Right.
Okay. So they can go offshore and they can do whatever they want to their own people. But in this country, for example, no, they're not allowed to conduct biowarfare.
Nope. Is that going to be the next one?
I think it needs to be. I think that we need to shut them down. I think we need to start liquidating these corporations that have been involved in this. And I think we need to bust the AMA.
Let's do it. Let's do that. The AMA, you know how I feel about them murderers.
They are murderers, and that's why they need to be disbanded.
Yes. Okay, more questions, real quick.
Yeah, we don't have any time left.
This is the last one, I think, if you're fine with it. Are we good? Should we stop? Recent article mentioning gather your info on mortgage holder name and contract info and payoff amount and account number. There was no directions of who to send it to.
Well, you can. The idea here is to get it ready because this is going to be paid off by the global family group, by the banks.
Wow.
Our banks are going to pay off those mortgages and then hold those mortgages accountable as credits. So basically, it'll take it off of your shoulders. You will no longer have to worry about a mortgage. And then we will do the same thing with property taxes and all these other things that are bedeviling people. We'll simply lift them right off your shoulders and you won't have to worry about them anymore. And that's immediate relief. Okay, so what we're driving for is immediate relief. Then all of those claims that were made with and have been made and are continued to be made with the SIA program will be dealt with separately. But the immediate thing that we're looking at is getting all the people who've been mortgaged improperly will be set free of those mortgages. So hold on to that information so that when the program opens, you can simply send it into the program and get the mortgage paid off. And then once the mortgage is paid off, claim your patent and be done with the whole system. Be safe and no longer be under any affiliation of your land and soil with their British title system.
We did it.
I knew
We answered so many questions. There's a lot of other questions here, but friends, we need to respect Anna's time. We have folks wishing you happy birthday, Anna. Happy born day. We hope you have an excellent week. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And we know you don't really take any days off. So I guess we're going to see you Thursday because
Right.
you said you were going to give us an incredible, I can't wait to learn about D-Day.
Well, you know, D-Day is an interesting bit of history just in and of itself because it made many firsts.
Hmm.
D-Day was the first time that an attack was launched on air, land, and sea. Most people don't realize that, but it's the first time in history that an armed conflict um, was engaged in all three jurisdictions at once.
Wow. Well, it's going to be an incredible lesson, friends. I hope you will join us we'll have the replay for you guys on our Telegram channel after Thursday. And then we'll see you again, Anna, next Tuesday. Thank you so much for your time today.
Take care, everybody. Have a good week.